Okay, good afternoon, family. My name is Jonathan, and I'm an alcoholic. And we want to welcome you to the Johnny and Clyde Rocketman Big Book Study. We're just two sober alcoholics reading and studying the big book together, the way that Joe and Charlie did back in the day. So let's start with a moment of silence, followed by the set-aside prayer. We can't hear you.
God, today, help me set aside everything I think I know about you, everything I think I know about myself, everything I think I know about others, and everything I think I know about my own recovery, so I may have an open mind and a new experience with all these things. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Okay, here's the deal. In 1973, Joe McHugh introduced Charlie P. as the AA speaker at an Al-Anon convention. Joe and Charlie soon discovered that they both shared a love for the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. Traveling between their homes, they discussed the big book, and it became a regular event. So, Jonathan and Clyde, we met in the Zoo Crew in 2022, and we both discovered that we shared a love for the big book. So we started reading it and studying it together. And soon we were asked to put this podcast together to read it and study it along with you guys. So we're glad that you're here. We meet here every Sunday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time until 3:30 in this room. Please have your big book handy along with a sheet of paper or two to take some notes, and you might want to highlight as we read and study together. We will be recording this audio of these meetings to share them with others. To listen to it, you could go to our website at thezooCrew.org. So the purpose of this big book study meeting is to help you when you're meeting with a prospect, what we now call sponsees, or just talking about sobriety in general. See, we want you to be armed with the facts about the AA program and yourself, because freedom from alcohol comes through taking the 12 steps and working with others. Now, this is what the 12 steps are. Page 15 of the 12 and 12. AA's 12 steps are a group of principles, spiritual in nature, which, if practiced as a way of life, can expel the obsession to drink and enable a sufferer to become happily and usefully whole. So how soon do we want to be happy, joyous, and free? We suggest that you purchase a copy of the big book for future use. You might want to underline, highlight, and even take notes as we study together. Please order your AA literature directly from AA so that the money goes to Alcoholics Anonymous and to ensure that you get a good copy. Here in the original Zoo Crew, we are not advocating that you rush through the steps, but we highly suggest that you have a sense of urgency in taking the 12 steps and having them become a way of life sooner than later. Act as if this was a matter of life and death, because it is actually a matter of life and death. If your house was on fire, would you call the fire department and tell them, hey, my house is on fire, but I've got this under control. You guys just take your time. You probably wouldn't, but isn't that what we did with our alcoholism? So once again, how soon do you want to be happy, joyous, and free? You could go to our website at thezooCrew.org and order a copy of the big book as well as read it online. The big book is our basic text, and it contains a full recipe for recovery. And it's impossible to find a loophole in the big book that excludes you from being a member of AA. So this afternoon, we'll be reading the chapter more about alcoholism on page 36 and 37. At this time, I'm going to have Clyde come in and bring us up to speed, and then we're going to start studying together. Come on in, Clyde.
All right. Hey, thank you, Cuzin. I'm an alcoholic. My name's Clyde, and really glad to be here with the group studying the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. And as Cuzin said, we're in our, if you have your big book, let's go ahead and get it out. We're on page 37. We're in chapter 3, more about alcoholism. And this is just telling us more and more we're being properly armed with the facts about ourselves. And the way Bill does it in this chapter is there's 4 examples, 4 different people. And we read about the first 2, and we're going to finish reading about the second one. The first person we read about was this businessman. And this more about alcoholism is telling us about this peculiar mental phenomenon that goes on with us alcoholics. You know, the main problem of the alcoholic centers in his mind. We learned that in chapter 2, there is a solution. And they're giving us 4 specific examples here in this chapter. The first one was this businessman that at 30 years old realized he had to quit drinking if he was going to have a happy life and be successful. So he quit drinking on his own with no program for 25 years. And so he figured when he retired at age 55 that it was safe to drink because he obviously had it under control, and realized quickly thereafter that, he was committed to an insane asylum within a couple of months. And then he realized that, man, I need to quit drinking completely or else. And he couldn't quit. And so he was dead in 4 years. So the moral of that story is, for us alcoholics, we cannot drink after a period of abstinence. Once an alcoholic, always an alcoholic. It doesn't go away. It's incurable. Now, the second example is what we read about last week, and we're going to continue. We're going to finish that story today. That's our friend Jim. And he's the one that stopped at the roadside place to have a sandwich and some milk, and had this brilliant idea that if he mixed his whiskey with some milk and drank it on a full stomach with his sandwiches and milk in his stomach, he'd be able to sneak it in there and be okay. It wouldn't be a problem for him. So he was trying this experiment. We're learning about the experiment, the desperate experiment that a lot of us alcoholics, we just somehow, someday, some way, we're going to figure out how to drink without all the negative consequences. And it's insanity is what Bill calls it. It says at the top of page 37, you know, whatever the precise definition of the word may be, we call this plain insanity. He calls it a lack. How can such a lack of proportion? And what that means is, if you look at the bottom of page 36, all reasons for not drinking, which is a very big list of things. There's a lot of reasons not to drink, because you lose your job, you lose your family, you lose everything, your mind. There's a lot of big reasons to not drink, easily pushed aside in favor of the foolish idea that if I just have a little bit of whiskey, you know, just a small amount of whiskey, I'm going to be able to, I'll be okay. I can do this. So that's the lack of proportion he's talking about. The consequences are so big from taking that little drink, and that's insanity. So that's what he's talking about there. And Cousin, did you want to mention that you did a little homework on this person and tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I had looked at, you know, we've been reading this story about Jim for so long. So I come to find out that he's not a fictitious character, that he was actually somebody that Bill W. had worked with. And they said that his name was Ralph Furlong. But then they go and they say that it was a guy named Harlan Spencer. So the bottom line is that this is not a made up story, you know, that somebody actually came to Bill, wanted help, and Bill was working with him. And we already went over the fact that this guy went out about 6 times that we counted, right? 6 times that we counted, and kept coming back, and he just got worse and worse and worse. But yeah, just a mental note, this was a real person going through all of this.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and pick up now where we left off last week. We're on page 37 at the top, the second paragraph. And here's what it says. We're going to read just one paragraph, and then we're going to stop, and we're going to have a discussion and study and share experience and whatnot. So it says, you may think this is an extreme case. To us, it is not far-fetched, for this kind of thinking has been characteristic of every single one of us. We have sometimes reflected more than Jim did upon the consequences, but there was always the curious mental phenomenon. And remember, a phenomenon is a rare thing that's hard to explain. So there's this curious mental phenomenon that parallel with our sound reasoning, we're using our reasoning mind here, there inevitably ran some insanely trivial excuse for taking the first drink. So we're thinking it through in our head and we know we shouldn't do this, can't do this, but we come up with this ridiculous excuse that why we can drink and why we need a drink. It says our sound reasoning failed to hold us in check. The insane idea won out. Next day, we would ask ourselves in all earnestness and sincerity how it could have happened. Why does that insanity overrule our thinking mind? We know we shouldn't do this. We know there's going to be some really harsh consequences to this, and yet we make up some excuse to drink. So, yeah. Anybody have any comments on that? Can you relate to that? Does this match your experience? Okay, great. I'm sure it makes sense. We're inserting ourselves in here.
Hi, I'm Kelly. I'm a grateful recovering alcoholic. I can say that it's becoming clearer, more so that I understand the opposite of the way I used to think. Like I feel the change, but there still is that it's deeply rooted. I am going to get dual diagnosis mental health issue, to deal with past traumas and stuff. It is a physical reoccurrence and a mental reaction to certain thoughts and emotions. So yes, but it's the reality that I live through the self-destruction and how I put so many people at risk. 3 DUIs, jail time, loss of jobs, broken relationships, setting myself up in situations where I would be not well taken care of, and I never learned to really take care of myself. So, I truly, and then where it says, it's for every single one of us, I think, on whatever scale we do, and that's why we have this fellowship of unity. We know that to some extent, and some of us, is really, really, but the joy, the hope, the promise that it changes, it gets better without the alcohol. You still have to deal with the root causes, internal and your thoughts and everything. But my God is leading me into a realization that life is really good. I can make a difference, and that it's okay to get through this. And I love this book. It's a treasure. So thanks for letting me share.
Okay, thank you, Kelly. And what we're going to read about now is some of these excuses that we're talking about, these trivial excuses. We're going to check this out. They're going to give us specific examples. It says, in some circumstances, we have gone out deliberately to get drunk. That means we decided, hey, I'm just going to go drink, period. And here's why. Feeling ourselves justified, i.e., excuse, by nervousness, anger, worry, depression, jealousy, or the like. These are examples of reasons that excuses we give ourselves that, well, by golly, I'm going to drink. I need a drink. And I deserve it. That's an excuse to drink. Remember, we drink because our problems are piling up. They're becoming astonishingly difficult to solve. We like the effect produced by alcohol, and we're looking for some excuse, some stupid reason to take a drink. These are examples of those. And it says, but even in this type of beginning, we are obliged to admit, time to be honest with ourselves, that our justification for a spree, excuse, was insanely insufficient. See how they keep using the word insanity, insane, insanely, insanity? That's what this chapter is all about. That's what these 4 examples are. This is describing us. This is why we need a power greater than ourselves to restore us to sanity, because we think like this. This is what they're talking about. So it says, we now see that when we began to drink deliberately instead of casually, there was little serious or effective thought during the period of premeditation of what the terrific consequences might be. So here they're telling us, like, when we decide we're going to drink, we're not even thinking about consequences. We're like, you know what? I need a drink. I'm going to go get a drink, period, because I have this great excuse. And I'm not even thinking about consequences at this point. I like how they talk about, the period of premeditation.
Yes, yes, yes. And it tells us, it also tells us right up in the top, it says that some of us had even reflected more than Jim before going out and taking that drink.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And
So
I can
again,
identify with that. And and then, when it comes to those excuses, we know about that. Y'all know why I drank. I drank because I wanted to get high, and I didn't want to deal with problems as they came up, and that's what the book tells us too. We found out. So all of this other, let's call it bullshit, what it is.
yep.
The nervousness, the anger, the worry, the depression. That's why every time I came back with a different excuse on why I went out. And it wasn't until I finally could look somebody eyeball in the eyeball and say, I just wanted to get high, man, that I started to get honest. I had to be in the back of the room in a freaking meeting, and somebody asked me again, after so many times, and I finally said it. Clyde, I just wanted to get fucked up, man. And that was a beginning for me. Anybody can identify with that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So again,
I can. I'm Kelly. I'm a grateful recovery alcoholic. I used to call it the fuck it's. Like, it was just, I wanted to be damned, just to not, like, I'm a blackout drunk, like, since I was like 12. Like, when I drink, I just black out. And it was to take me away from my reality, whatever that was at the point, to no regard for anything. So it was so destructive. I don't have to live that way today. But yes, I mean, that's how I was. And if I'm not honest, and I've got to get a grip on what that means for me, honesty about accepting what I'm asked to do. If I'm not honest with this, I will fail and go back to that, because it is a neural pathway. It is a comfortable situation where, I know that it'll lead to creating havoc, and that will be I feel like I'm not capable to take control of my life. So therefore I choose that, because it will happen. It will be destructive. Things will negatively occur. Whereas having the courage to be honest and doing the program and do the simple things, that's where I'm at. So I understand that.
Okay, Kelly, let me ask you something. I want to ask everybody in this room. Have you guys arrived to that point? For those of us who have relapsed, right? Have we arrived to that point where we could just say, I wanted to get high? And have you ever done it yet?
Yeah.
Where somebody asked you finally, when you came back off of a relapse, after I told them the dog died, the job, the wife, the money, the car, and all kinds of other garbage, finally I had to just say, I really wanted to get high.
I did when I drank.
Okay.
It was my sister's birthday.
That wasn't something that I
just
did.
wanted to.
I had to.
Yeah. That wasn't something that I did. I always had a lie, an excuse. It wasn't until I did that I started to move on.
I had to be honest with myself and say, yeah, I decided on my sister's birthday I wanted to drink, knowing I'm an alcoholic, and knowing what would happen. But I said, oh, I'll be okay. I'll eventually stop drinking after a while when something happens. And I chose to drink. I literally chose to drink, knowing it would affect me the way it does. My brain just convinced me it doesn't matter.
And has anybody here not done it yet? You still talking the bullshit when you come back? I just want to ask, yeah. Are you still talking shit when you come back, or did you get down to it yet and just let people know you wanted to get high? Go ahead.
Charlene, alcoholic.
Hold on, Charlene, let me pause. Yeah, just a moment. Just as a matter of protocol, let's raise our hands and let cousin Jonathan call us to share, okay? It gets too complicated with everyone talking over to everyone. So
all right, we're doing good.
Yeah, you go ahead, Charlene, and then Jonathan will call the next person with their hand up. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think that's a good question.
I personally had made excuses in my early times of relapsing. Like most of you know, I'm here 3.5 years, and I changed it to 7.5 months, but that's because I hadn't been honest with myself. I was still making excuses as to why I went out and did Jim's story and drank. No, I was looking for an excuse to drink. I was nearing the year point, and I was looking for an excuse to say, oh, I'm not that bad of an alcoholic. It's not me. And when I finally came to terms with, nope, I'm just an idiot, and I was using it as an excuse. I used it all the other times. People, places, and things were my excuses to drink. No, I wanted to keep trying. I wanted to keep thinking I could do it. And now that I'm honest with myself and I'm an alcoholic, I cannot put in. I have an allergy. I have an obsession. But early March, end of February, that obsession was removed. And I'm so thankful. And thank you guys. I haven't been able to listen to the whole thing. I got interrupted, but this is awesome. Thank you.
All right. Christy, come on in.
Hey guys, Christy, alcoholic, got home. Yeah, I don't think I've actually used those words like, yeah, I just really wanted to get drunk, but it's kind of the same concept. I relapsed. Thankfully, it was a 1-day thing. I don't even know what I'm at, like 12 or 13 days ago. And I came in and I told people, and it was like, it was so premeditated. I mean, I had to tell the group, it's like, I knew it was coming. I knew it was coming. I am not like the stupidest alcoholic in the world. It's like, I was going through stuff. I wanted it. I just wanted to not think about it, which essentially is the same thing as saying, for me, I just wanted to get drunk. I didn't want to think about it. I just wanted to get drunk. I knew exactly what would happen. Exactly what would happen. It doesn't go like another way for me. I knew it. It was premeditated, and I knew it. I knew what was going to happen. I wasn't going to hurt anybody. I was going to fall asleep. I was going to be in my home, and I wouldn't think about it. I'd just zone out. But that's not good either, because I also knew it was coming, and I have stuff in my toolbox that I could have done days leading up to this that I did not do. And I finally just was like, you know what, screw it. I just want to get drunk.
All right.
So thankfully it wasn't long lasting, and I have to keep working on that. But yeah, I knew.
All right, great. And you know what? I'm glad that you said that, because that's how you get to know me. That's how you get to know me. I want you to continue to say that. All of the other stuff that you've been saying, I don't want to hear it anymore. Just say the real deal, get right to the point. I went out because I wanted to get high. And you're gonna see how that's gonna change your thinking, because that's part of getting honest and letting people get to know me instead of running all of these BS lines, you know, and all of the good stuff. But yeah, that's gonna be growth. Try it, believe me. Lindsay, come on in.
All righty, okay.
Good afternoon, Lindsay, grateful recovering alcoholic. I will say that when I started drinking, I wanted to get fucked up, okay? It wasn't about, so over the years, it became, for me, more of a feeling like I needed to. Now, if I were to make that decision after 3 months to go back, damn straight it would be premeditated, and it would be I wanted to go get fucked up. You know, but as far as like most of the time, I really felt like I was driven and needed to do it no matter what. And there was excuses like crazy. There was always an excuse. It was somebody, it was this situation, it was that situation. It was because I was tired. It was because I was happy, angry, bored, sad. I just felt like I needed it. So thanks for letting me share.
All right, thank you. Now we're getting somewhere. Regina, come on in. But she can't
Hey,
unmute.
this Regina, alcoholic. What made her hair? Yeah, I thought I did.
Go ahead, go ahead. Yeah.
Oh, wait a minute. Can you hear me? What
Yeah.
made the hair stand up on the back of my head is when I'm Regina, I'm an alcoholic. Chrissy said that she wasn't gonna hurt anybody. And that right there, that thought for me, I'm thinking in my mind that I'm not going to hurt anybody because I'm not intentionally going to do it. But in the insanity of it all, is that I already know the hurt that it's going to bring. But in that moment, thinking, oh, it's not that bad. It's crazy because I already know, even though I don't intentionally want to hurt anyone, the potential of it happening is almost 100 that it's going to happen if I do. So that really got us to say something. I'm done.
Okay, that's what's up. Now, if you're here, right? This is what we're gonna do. We're gonna change our vocabulary. When we talk about our drinking, and if we have relapse in the past, we're no longer gonna use those excuses. We're gonna let people know that we just wanted to get high more than we wanted to stay sober, and then move on with what we're saying. And I think that that's gonna make a difference, and I think that it's gonna show others, that it's okay, to relapse that way, and that all of the BS is just BS, but you're back and now you're getting just a little bit more honest. It just works for me. You will very rarely hear me give a whole bunch of excuses about why I went out and got high the last time, because now I know. Now I know. So I tell it like it is.
Yep. Okay, very good. This is great, guys. And I just want to remind everyone what we've learned so far from these first two examples, because we're going to continue reading about our third example. And this all has to do with this mental thing that we're affected by with our alcoholism. The first example was a period of abstinence does not enable us to safely begin drinking again. That was that first example, the businessman. The second example, which we're just finished right now, is Jim. And by the way, it says our first example is a friend we shall call Jim, like Cuzin said. So it sounds like it's hypothetical, but it is a real person with a real name. And so that's a real story. And the moral of that story is these excuses, these experiments, we can experiment all we want and make every excuse we want. But it's insanity for us to think we can safely get away with drinking. If we're an alcoholic, we cannot. It's insane for us to think we can experiment and figure out a way to do it. We can't. So that was the two first examples.
Now don't forget, Clyde, before we move on, that Jim, it specifically says that Jim wants to show us that no matter how deep the necessity to stop, we'll still go back to drinking if we don't get treatment. Everything was on the line for him. They already told us he lost the business already, was working for the business, was in and out of the insanitarium. He had relapsed many times, and now he was at threat of losing everything, and he still went out and drank. Still went out and drank.
Yeah,
and that's me. That was me.
Yeah, and now that you bring it up, Cuzin, here's another really important point. At the bottom of page 36, it talks about, just like Cuzin said, threat of commitment, loss of family and position, intense mental and physical suffering. But he still continued to drink, and check this out. He had much in italics. When Bill uses italics, it's important. That means really pay attention. And here's what it says. He had much knowledge about himself as an alcoholic. So he had all this self-knowledge. We learn about that in Bill's story. We learn about it in There Is a Solution. We learn about it here again. This self-knowledge, it does not work. There's specific examples of it pointed out in the
What page are you on, Clyde?
I was looking at the bottom of page 36 about about the self-knowledge, and we're going to read more about it on page 39, and it's also referenced in other places too. So it's on page 26. There's the self-knowledge will not work for us. So thank you for pointing that out. There's gave us a great example of the insanity of drinking for us alcoholics. And self-knowledge, even though we know it, the fact that we still keep trying, that's the insanity. So next we're going to read about.
Let Charlene come in before you move on.
Oh yeah, I didn't see that. Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you, Clyde. Yeah, he had much knowledge about himself as an alcoholic. I had gone through all the steps with my sponsor. I thought I had the self-knowledge. And all the reasons for drinking were pushed aside because like I've shared before, I ended up in that convenience store with a couple of cans of beer. Well, a couple of cans of beer aren't going to help me. I used to drink really hard stuff. But no, it led me down a slippery slope for a day and a half because I was looking for an excuse to drink. So I'm going to go back and highlight this because right now I'm on my phone and making my notes. Thank you. Because yes, I had much knowledge, but I pushed it all aside because I wanted that damn drink. I wanted an excuse. I appreciate and love you guys. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Charlene. So, okay, well, we'll go ahead now. That was the first two examples. Now we're going to get to the third example out of 4. And it's at the bottom of page 37 where we're picking up here. And it says, our behavior is as absurd and incomprehensible with respect to the first drink as that of an individual with a passion, say, for jaywalking. So this person gets a thrill out of jaywalking. Says he gets a thrill out of skipping in front of fast moving vehicles. So just imagine there's a car flying down the street, and for excitement and fun and a thrill, you like to run out and just barely see how close you can come to getting hit by that car without him actually hitting you. And that gets your adrenaline going and you're just really excited about it, right? That's this guy. We used to do this when I was in high school. Me and my buddies, we would be down on the train tracks and when the Amtrak drinking beer and smoking weed, of course. And when the train would come, we would stand on the track. This is at night, through the canyon where the freight trains or the passenger trains are coming through at 70 miles an hour, and stand on the track until the last second and jump out of the way because we wanted to be cool and it was thrilling. So I get this story big time. So it says that he enjoys himself for a few years in spite of friendly warnings. So people are telling him, hey, you know what, that's dangerous. You should stop doing that. Up to this point, you would label him as a foolish chap having queer ideas of fun. Got to admit, that's a pretty stupid way to have fun, standing and running in front of fast moving cars. Luck then deserts him and he is slightly injured several times in succession. So he's starting to have some issues and be grazed and hit, or maybe he's landing wrong when he jumps out of the way. So you would expect him, if he were normal, to cut it out. Of course you would. Presently, he's hit again. So this guy gets hit again. This time, he's got a fractured skull. So he's getting more damaged as he does this. Within a week after leaving the hospital, his fractured skull is healed. A fast-moving trolley car breaks his arm. So he doesn't jump out of the way in time. He waits till the very last second. and his arm is still out there when the trolley goes by, and whack, breaks his arm. He tells you he's decided to stop jaywalking for good. He's like, okay, that's it. I can't do this anymore. But in a few weeks, he breaks both legs. He's so addicted to the thrill of racing in front of some speeding vehicle. It's so thrilling, he just cannot resist. He's a thrill seeker, right? So on through the years, this conduct continues, accompanied by his continual promises to be careful or to keep off the streets altogether. So he knows he has a problem, that this is not normal, but he cannot stop. He's addicted. So he says finally he can no longer work. So he's lost his job. His wife gets a divorce, leaves this guy because he's so crazy. And he's held up to ridicule. People are making fun of him. His wife divorced him. He can't work anymore, all because of this addiction to this thrill. So he tries every known means to get the jaywalking idea out of his head. He's like, I gotta stop this. This is crazy, but he can't. So he shuts himself up in an asylum, hoping to mend his ways. So he locks himself, gets himself admitted into the psych ward. He's thinking, I gotta get help here. The day he comes out, he races in front of a fire engine, which breaks his back. This guy is nuts. Says such a man would be crazy, wouldn't he? So can you guys relate to being so excited by something, so addicted to something so thrilling that you just can't resist doing it, even though you know it's bad for you, you just can't stop doing it? Does that make sense? Yeah. And that's what we do. This is an analogy for us with our drinking. We know how damaging it is, how injurious it is. And we know we need to stop, but we just can't stop. That's the whole point. So Regina, yeah, come on in.
I'm Regina, I'm an alcoholic. One of the things that got me as you were reading is that he's saying that he's a jaywalker. Well, this jaywalker is doing all this. There are people involved. He's impacting other people. They're not objects. He's running in front of somebody that's taking somebody else's time. Yeah, I didn't, when you think about it, when you really think about it, the choices that he made, well, I'm not doing anything to anybody else. Yes, you are. You're not on an island by yourself. Everything around you, everything around me is not an object. There are other people that's impacted by the choices that I make. And when they and are harming others and not knowing it, because he's not even thinking about nobody else. And that's the way I did. Not even thinking about nobody else. And that's the mind, the insanity of it all. So I just had that just.
Thank you, Regina.
Charlene.
Yeah.
Charlene.
Yes, thank you. He shuts himself up in an asylum, hoping to mend his ways. Before I came into AA in the spring of 2021, I shut myself up in an asylum. It was literally an asylum, and spent some time in there. The day after I got out, I ordered my drink and I started drinking again. And the whole I'm not hurting anybody else. Well, I was a sloppy falling down drunk. I've dislocated my shoulder several times falling down drunk. And a couple of months after shutting myself into the asylum, this wonderful fireman comes to my house to pick my ass up off the ground again and says, you're affecting other people. If I have to keep coming here and picking you up, I'm calling adult services. Because, even though I think I'm not hurting anybody else, every time I call them because I've fallen down, that's a paramedic call or a fire call that they can't be on because they're picking up this dumbass alcoholic off her bedroom floor. So it is the insanity, and the insanity that we think we're not harming anybody else, because Somebody posted in there, the ripple effect. Exactly. So thank you.
Thank you, Charlene. So, are you guys ready to continue reading, Cousin, or what do you think? Yeah. Okay. All right. So here we go. He used the word. Bill used the word crazy here. The last sentence in what we just read. Such a man would be crazy, wouldn't he? That's another word for insane. So we keep getting the word insanity, insane, insanely, crazy. And in the next paragraph, we're going to see the word insane. That's what this chapter is all about, the insanity. So here's what it says. You may think our illustration is too ridiculous, but is it? Question mark. We who have been through the ringer have to admit, if we substituted alcoholism for jaywalking, the illustration would fit us exactly. And it does. However intelligent we may have been in other respects, where alcohol has been involved, we have been strangely insane. There it is again. It's strong language, but isn't it true? And the answer is yes, it does fit exactly. And it is insane. And it's true. It's true. It's that simple. So we'll keep reading here. It says, some of you are thinking, and ask yourself, oh, hold on. Regina, come on in and share with us. I'm sorry, Sam. Sam.
Hey, it's okay. Hey, Clyde, thank you guys. Sam, alcoholic. Yeah, the insanity is defined as mentally deranged, and that is the condition of being mentally to lose sense and unreasonableness. And that was definitely my experience when I was drinking. I was unreasonable. So I kind of just wanted to share that. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. Thanks for coming in and sharing with us. So we'll go ahead and continue. We're learning more about alcoholism. That's the name of the chapter, and this is what we're learning. It says, some of you are thinking, and ask yourself. So we're going to substitute ourselves into this and see if we can relate, see if we can identify if it matches our experience. It says, some of you are thinking, yes.
Hey, Clyde,
Yeah.
before you read this, let's talk about who this is that you're talking to. You're talking to Smarty Pants now, and watch what Smarty Pants tells you. Go ahead.
Okay, this is Smarty Pants. Okay. Says, some of you are thinking, yes, what you tell us is true, but it doesn't fully apply. See, that's Smarty Pants. That's exactly what Cousin's talking about. I think I know better. This applies to all you rest of you clowns. Doesn't apply to me. I know better. Check this out. We admit we have some of these symptoms, but we have not gone to the extremes you fellows did, nor are we likely to, for we understand ourselves so well after what you have told us that such things cannot happen again. Says we have not lost everything in life through drinking, and we certainly do not intend to. Thanks for the information.
Signed, yours truly, Smarty Pants.
Yeah. That's right. So, yeah. So here I'm going to do a cross reference now to page 26, if you have your big book. And this is Roland Hazard's story dealing with Dr. Young and his treatment. And remember, Roland Hazard, we're on page, I want you to turn to page 26. He was the first person in the AA chain of sober people to get sober using the Oxford Group's program to have a vital spiritual experience. And they had 6 steps at the time. He was the first one that got sober. But before he got sober, listen to what it says. In this paragraph, about in the middle of the page, it says that above all, see on page 26, we're talking about Roland, being treated by the psychiatrist, Dr. Young. Says he believed he had acquired such a profound knowledge of the inner workings of his mind and its hidden springs that relapse was unthinkable. So he had all this self-knowledge, just like this guy's talking about on page 38. He understood himself so well that it could not happen again, no problem. Well, it says, nevertheless, on page 26, he was drunk in a short time. So this self-knowledge doesn't work. And then it also talks about self-knowledge, at the top of page 39, okay? It says that the actual or potential alcoholic in this first complete paragraph, it's, oh, we're going to get to that. We're not there yet. Hey, you know what? Well, let's hold that thought for now. The point is that self-knowledge isn't going to cut it. This guy is being a smart aleck, saying that doesn't apply to me. I understand myself all too well. Thanks for sharing all that with me. Thank you very much. I'm fine. And so here's what happened. Here's the moral of the story. We're going to see what happened to this guy. It says that may be true. I'm on page 39, top of the page, first full paragraph. That may be true of certain non-alcoholic people who, though drinking foolishly and heavily at the present time, are able to stop or moderate. Remember, the moderate drinker can stop, no problem. The heavy drinker can stop if they really have to. These are non-alcoholic people. So that's true. If you armed them with this information, the moderate and the heavy drinker could stop, and they would stop because their brains, and here's why. It says because their brains and bodies have not been damaged as ours were. So they're non-alcoholic. They don't have the phenomenon of craving and all the physical issues and the allergy, and they don't have the mental issues that we have either. So, but then it goes on to tell us about us, alcoholics. It says, but the actual or potential alcoholic, with hardly an exception, will be, now here's the italics again, absolutely unable to stop drinking on the basis of self-knowledge. Self-knowledge doesn't work. We keep reading this over and over. It says, this is a point we wish to emphasize and re-emphasize to smash home upon our alcoholic readers, as it has been revealed to us out of bitter experience. It says, let us take another illustration. So this is we're wrapping up the third example of insanity and how, what the thinking problem is with us alcoholics. Self-knowledge won't work. Loretta, Mama Bear, you want to come in and share with us? Okay, come on in.
Thank you, Clyde. I was a bit late, but I caught up. Loretta, Mama Bear, and I'm definitely an alcoholic. However, I remember the guys that quit for 9 years, people that quit for 20 years and go back to drink. I mean, that whole thing could be very deceiving. I mean, even if you were to practice, okay, well, I could stop drinking, so I'm not an alcoholic. Well, that's good and well and fine. However, you stop drinking, go back later on in a few years, it'll hit you. So, with that, with the knowledge of knowing that, I can't. I personally, there's no way I can depend on that, and it doesn't matter how long you've not been drinking, and you start back up again, forget about it. Anyway, thank you for letting me share. Loretta, Mama Bear, peace out.
Great, thank you. Thanks, Mama Bear. Anyone else want to share on this example of the jaywalker and the self-knowledge? How ineffective.
Yeah, that was before we start reading, I want to say that was a great point that Loretta brought up, and what it made me think is that yeah, the difference between we got the moderate drinker, we have the heavy drinker, and then of course we have the real alcoholic. But the line between those and when we cross them is completely invisible. If anyone knows when they cross that line, I'd like to hear from you if you really know. All right, come on in.
Hey, Linda, grateful recovering alcoholic. So the moderate drinker, I've recognized that like there is no in between for me. But being in the presence of someone who is on the fringe, I recognize the allergy in myself and the allergy in them. And so I'm like, recognizing that the boundaries, all the talk and all the, all the like self-help and self-inquiry and, the self-love and self-care in the world, I cannot. Like, I literally am coming to an understanding that there's a difference that I feel and I see and I know. And I recognize the craving that I have towards it. I remember the craving of just driving. While you're driving here in Baltimore doing DoorDash, there's liquor stores at every corner. You know what I mean? And like, I just remember my craving. I still have I remember that. I remember it, and I just remember and I hold fast to that. Like, I don't have that craving anymore. Like, God, that is released. Now, there's other things, and this is why I always come back because there's other things that could kill me, like jaywalking and being angry. Anger will get me right back. Anger comes from not taking responsibility, shame, blame, all of that. So, just recognizing the depravity of this, and that I can't, I won't, I will, but I can. I can make the decision and the choice to give a, we already know. You know what I mean? So, yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so let me say this again. Yeah, can anyone put a time or a date on when they cross that line? And the reason that I say that is because I found that that's not even important anymore. It's not even important. The important thing is what I want to do about it. But if you think that you know when you cross that line, I'd certainly like to hear. Come on, Regina.
What grabs my attention the most about what we were reading is that there are the moderate and type of drinker, but then there is me, the absolute drunk. Okay, I don't know what's a technical name for it, but the fact that this is not reversible. Once that line is crossed, that means at that point where I am unable to stop drinking, if I get to that line, I can't undo it. It's irreversible. So the disease is irreversible. Once you got it, whether you recognize it or not, you got it. If you cannot stop drinking, if you are that type of alcoholic. So that's an awareness for me. It really brings things into a bright light. Yeah, thank you. Cousin is muted if you're saying anything.
Yeah, you're muted, cousin. Yeah.
I'm just waiting on the next participant.
Oh, okay.
Come
Sylvia, come on in, Sylvia. Yeah.
Yep, Sylvia, alcoholic. I don't know the exact date, but I can tell you it was a Tuesday night because my boyfriend played basketball, and I had called him to say, what time are you going to be home, because so I can start dinner. And I was trying to be kind of sexy about it and enticing, and I remember he chose to go out and have beer with the boys after basketball, and I said, you know what, if he's not coming home, I'm getting drunk. And that was the first time. And then as the relationship got worse, the drinking got worse, then COVID hit the next year, then it really got worse. So I can definitely remember that moment where I was like, I need to escape.
I mean, I would drink at parties, and I live in New Orleans. I mean, I would drink at Mardi Gras. Shoot, you can buy alcohol everywhere here. But I definitely remember that was the first time where I said, I want to drink to escape. And that bottle, at the time of wine, I progressed to hard liquor, but that bottle replaced the relationship. I fell in love with wine and out of love with him as he fell out of love with me. And look at me now, single and an alcoholic. So yeah, couldn't tell you the day, but I know the date, but I know it's a Tuesday night because he played basketball on Tuesday nights. It was pretty warm out, but it's New Orleans, so that's 11 months out of the year. But anyway, yeah, thanks for letting me share. It's kind of makes me giggle, but not really.
Cool. Thank you. Right, Arlene.
Okay. I know when I realized I had a problem, when I had crossed that line, it was April of 2021. I had been binging since 2020, late 2020. But we were going on a vacation, 10 days. And right as we were getting ready to leave, I remembered I forgot my medications and my vitamins. So I went back to the mom cave to get them. I found 2 beers sitting next to my chair that I'd forgotten I had. So I slammed one. I spent that whole 10 days on vacation obsessing about that beer at home. And we got home at 10 o'clock at night. And the first thing I did, my husband's unloading the car. I go in the mom cave and I slammed that beer that had been sitting there that whole 10 days. And he walked in with some stuff, some of my luggage, and looked at me and said, "You couldn't even wait." And it was like, oh my gosh, I do have a problem. And that's when I reached out and checked myself into the asylum. But because I had that head knowledge and I was a smarty pants, when I actually came into AA, I didn't think I was like you people. I didn't have some of the yets. It wasn't until December that, like Jim, I went out for a drive in the country. Because you know damn well Jim knew he was going to have a drink. That's why he went out in the country. I literally knew I was driving to the next town over because everybody in my town knows me. I can't stop at a convenience store for water or whatever and walk out with 2 beers because somebody would say something. So in December is when I got honest with myself. And in February, when things were looking like they were going to do the same thing, I reached out for help and I found my zoo crew. So yes, April of 2021, that's when I realized I had a problem. Thank you.
Okay, great. All right, Sylvia, come on back in.
I just remembered my very first AA meeting. The same boyfriend at the time worked for, he still works for the Sugar Bowl, and LSU was here in town for the national title, and I had an all-access pass. And I said, well, I'm going to take a taxi anyway or Uber, so I'm going to have a glass of wine. And I remember getting so shit-faced and showing up and embarrassing the heck out of him. So he kicked me out. I walked my drunk ass home through a bunch of tailgaters, completely drunk in nice clothes. So it was the day after LSU won the title in football in 2019 and everyone at AA was like, that's your rock bottom? I mean, obviously my bottom got lower, but at the time that's what sent me to AA. And they were like, you're not an alcoholic. And I was like, okay. I mean, I had drank an entire bottle of wine because I couldn't stop. One was good, so 5 was better. But yeah, just remembered that too, my first AA meeting. So, but anyway, thanks for letting me share again. Double dipping.
All right, cool. All right.
It's been 5 years. Wow.
All right, Clyde, let's pick up with Fred's story.
Yeah, this is great, Cousin, and the rest of the group. This has been a great study so far. Let's continue. So that was we just completed the 3rd example, and now we're going to read about a 4th example in this chapter, more about alcoholism. And this is really drives home the point about how self-knowledge will not work. So check this out. We're going to read about Fred, okay? So Fred, we're in the middle of page 39. This is the 4th example of our mental twist of an alcoholic. It says Fred, his partner, in a well-known accounting firm. So he's got a good job. His income is good, has a fine home, happily married, and the father of promising children of college age. He's got it going on. He's got a nice house. He's got money. He's got a good wife and promising children. So he's got a lot going for him. He has so attractive a personality that he makes friends with everyone. Really, this guy's got it going on, right? If there ever was a successful businessman, it is Fred. So he's got it all together. To all appearance, he's a stable, well-balanced individual. Yet, he's alcoholic. Let's see what that means. We first saw Fred about a year ago in a hospital where he had gone to recover from a bad case of jitters. It was his first experience of this kind, and he was much ashamed of it. Far from admitting he was an alcoholic, so he's not even close to taking the first step in admitting powerlessness and unmanageability. He's just not even close to that. Far from admitting he was an alcoholic, he told himself, so he's given himself an excuse, Mr. Smarty Pants here, that he came to the hospital to rest his nerves. I'm not an alcoholic. I just need to rest my nerves. The doctor intimated, which is to suggest strongly, gave him a strong suggestion, said, hey, Fred, you might be in worse condition than you realize. For a few days, he was depressed about his condition. So he's starting to get honest with himself and realize the doctor might be right. So he's getting depressed. He made up his mind to quit drinking altogether. So Fred decided, okay, that's it. I'm going to quit drinking. It never occurred to him that perhaps he could not do so. Wow. So he didn't even think about that possibility. He just decided, hey, I'm going to quit drinking. But he may not be able to do so. It says, in spite of his character and standing. It says Fred would not believe himself an alcoholic, much less accept a spiritual remedy for his problem. So what's going on here is, remember when the first 40 people got sober when Bill had started writing the book in 1938. And when the book was published in April of 39, there were about 100 people sober. So they got these sober alcoholics going and talking to this guy, telling him about a spiritual remedy for his problem and telling him about what an alcoholic is. So, but it says Fred would not believe himself an alcoholic. He says, nope, I'm not an alcoholic, and I don't need a spiritual remedy for my problem. So it says, we told him what we knew about alcoholism. Let's let Sam come in and share real quick. Come on in and share, Sam.
Hey guys, Sam Alcoholic. Yeah, real quick, I just wanted to share that I did identify with this story about the being friends with everyone, and you wouldn't necessarily know how sick I really was. I hid it really well, but it took me getting sober and staying sober to really truly realize how sick I really was, mentally, physically. I came into the rooms because I couldn't stop drinking. But over, the next few months, as I stayed sober and worked the program, did the steps, I was going to the doctors a lot and finding out that my body was actually a lot sicker than I realized. In order to stay stopped, I needed this program to do it. There was no way I could have done it on my own. So I really related to that. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Sam. That does match this story very well, actually. This guy's having problems, but he just will not admit that he's an alcoholic, and he's being a smarty pants here, making excuses. And so, Lindsay, did you want to come in and share too?
Yeah, so I just wanted to mention that only recently have I told one of the people on my medical team that I have alcoholism. There was elevated numbers, problems with my fatty liver. Oh, no, it must be my weight. It was absolutely anything else than me drinking. I not once brought up the fact that I drank every single day, all day. It couldn't possibly be that, right? why I'm having health problems. So that's what that made me think of. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So let's keep reading now about these alcoholics coming to talk to him and share with him, just like the previous guy. They met with him, you know, he had relapsed 6 times in rapid succession, and this group of alcoholics, recovered alcoholics, kept showing up to work with him and tell him what was going on, and he kept relapsing. Same thing's going on. Let's read more about this guy, Fred. So it says, we told him what we knew about alcoholism. He was interested and conceded that he had some of the symptoms, but he was a long way from admitting that he could do nothing about it himself. Again, he is not ready to take the first step and admit his powerlessness. And here's why. It says at the top of page 40, he was positive that this humiliating experience, plus the knowledge he had acquired, remember that self-knowledge, would keep him sober the rest of his life. Self-knowledge would fix it. Again, we read about Roland Hazard on page 26 in the chapter.
Sincerely yours, hey Clyde, signed, sincerely yours, Smarty Pants.
Yes, yes, Smarty Pants. Yeah, or brainstorm. You know, we read about the grouch and the brainstorm later in step 3 and 4 in that portion of the book. Yeah, this guy thinks, yeah, he's got it all figured out. Self-knowledge.
He's going to figure it out. He's going to figure it out. That's right.
Yeah.
And you know, that's the advantage that we have here today. We realize that we don't have to figure anything out. The figuring out now, this is the word, right? The figured it outness has been done for us. Isn't that something? And I'm just learning this over the last 3.5 years. The figured it outness has been done for me. Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
And program never ceased to amaze me, still amazing me.
Yeah, and what's coming to mind also for me in reading this is, you know, the 3 indispensables for us alcoholics to recover are willingness. This guy's not willing to admit. He's not willing to take the first step. Honesty is being honest with ourselves, and open-mindedness. See, this guy's got a closed mind. He thinks that he's got it figured out. He has closed his mind to the suggestions that are being on, the tools that have been offered to him. He's like, nope. So he's not willing. He's not open-minded. That's why. Here we go. Let's see what happens to old Fred. Here's what a closed mind and unwillingness will do for an alcoholic. It says, we heard no more of Fred for a while. So he disappeared. Yeah, we've all seen this in the rooms. It says, one day we were told he was back in the hospital. Surprise, surprise. This time he was quite shaky. He soon indicated he was anxious to see us. So he's having his first step experience in a pretty big way now. I think he's realizing that. Here's what it says. The story he told us is most instructive. For here was a chap absolutely convinced he had to stop drinking. He knows, I have got to stop drinking. He had no excuse for drinking, who exhibited splendid judgment and determination in all his other concerns, yet was flat on his back nevertheless. So this guy's got it all going on, but he's an alcoholic and he cannot stop drinking on his own, period. That's the point. Sam, come on in and share.
Thanks, Clyde. Yeah, Sam, alcoholic. So there are warning signs in my program that I work this program with. And if I'm pulling away from the things I do every single day to stay sober, those are warning signs. So, you know, talking with other alcoholics, being in meetings, doing service is a part of my daily routine. Talking and praying with my higher power, part of my daily routine. If I start looking at my sober support like they don't know what they're talking about, I'm right, they're wrong, or pulling away from meetings, not sharing, things like that. Those are, I need to stay in the middle of the program because I will emotionally relapse before I actually relapse, and I don't want to do that. So just the way you said, like, you know, looking at everybody else, like these people and that they're crazy, I'm fine. That's, you know, that is going to lead to drinking like it did for Fred. And where did he end up? On his back. And that's exactly where I'd be if I didn't have, I can't do it alone. I need the program of AA, and I'm grateful for it. So I just wanted to share that.
Thank you so much. Hey, Clyde, before you read, I got this circled, and you know what? You guys need to circle this. This is one of the most convincing arguments in the book. One of the most convincing arguments in the book. Listen to this guy. Listen to this guy.
Okay. Yeah. So we're going to read the next paragraph. It says, let him tell you about it. So here, we're going to hear in Fred's own words. He's going to tell us about it. Here's what he said. I was much impressed with what you fellows said about alcoholism, and I frankly did not believe it would be possible for me to drink again. There it is again. He thinks he just not going to drink again. He knows it all now. I rather appreciated your ideas about the subtle insanity which precedes the first drink, but I was confident it could not happen to me after what I had learned. There it is again. Self-knowledge. He thinks he's got it all figured out. Says, I reasoned I was not so far advanced as most of you fellows, that I had been unusually successful in licking my other personal problems, and that I would therefore be successful where you men failed. Smarty pants. Says, I felt I had every right to be self-confident, that it would be only a matter of exercising my willpower and keeping on guard.
Wow. Tell me that isn't a convincing argument. I mean, this guy here, he really knew what to say. He really knew what to say. You know, if he would have gave a speech like this in front of a judge, you know, about stopping drinking, they probably let him the fuck out of jail. For real. I mean, he hit, you know, he was very convincing to himself. To himself. This is the kind of stuff that would keep me drunk. If I could talk this good to myself, I wouldn't need you. I really wouldn't. Read it again, Clyde, please. You got to read this again.
Yeah, this is so good. It says, let him tell you about it. So here's the guy, and just imagine you're this guy's wife or this guy's boss or the judge, and pretend that you're listening to him tell this story. If you wouldn't be feeling like, man, yeah, this guy's right. He's got it going on. So here's what he said. I was much impressed with what you fellows said about alcoholism, and I frankly did not believe it would be possible for me to drink again. He said, I rather appreciated your ideas about the subtle insanity which precedes the first drink, but I was confident it could not happen to me after what I had learned. I reasoned I was not so far advanced as most of you fellows, that I had been usually successful in licking my other personal problems, and that I would therefore be successful where you men failed. I felt I had every right to be self-confident, that it would be only a matter of exercising my willpower and keeping on guard. I got this all figured out. No problem.
No problem.
No problem. Now,
what's the next line? The next line.
Yes. In this frame of mind.
That's how he stayed. That's how he stayed, in this frame of mind.
That's right. And this is the scary part. The first example was the businessman that stayed sober and thought he could drink safely. Here, this guy's going to get lulled into the same trap. Listen to this. In this frame of mind, I went about my business, and for a time, all was well. So he's just reinforcing in his own head that, see, I can control this. I've got this. He says, I had no trouble refusing drinks and began to wonder if I had not been making too hard work of a simple matter. So he's thinking, I got this licked. I'm right. I have every reason to be self-confident. And all this self-knowledge does work. I got this. That's what he's telling himself. And one day I went to Washington to present some accounting evidence to a government bureau. I'd been out of town before during this particular dry spell, so there was nothing new about that. Physically, I felt fine. Neither did I have any pressing problems or worries. My business came off well. I was pleased and knew my partners would be too. Says it was the end of a perfect day, not a cloud on the horizon.
Wow. That sounds like me. That sounds a lot like me. Anyway, let's stop there. Can anybody identify with that? I mean, there's money in the bank, the job's going well, the wife is talking to me, the dog is walked, the kids are doing homework, and bang.
Yep. Yep. It's like Bill says in his story, I had arrived.
He said it was the end of a perfect day, not a cloud on the horizon. And I wanted to get high. That's how he could have finished that sentence. so I wanted to get high. Wasn't that the truth, Sam? Come on in.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like, because of the idea of romanticizing and celebration being connected to alcoholism so much in success being connected to celebration, it was like, okay, I would work so hard to go get that celebration drink and it would drive me and I would destroy everything. But when I was going off to do it, it was like the fun and excitement was there. I had this big plan. I was going to go have all this fun. I worked hard for it. And then, I would look at the house like how Cousin described it. Like everything's good. I said, guess what I'm going to do? Just go tornado myself and call it something it's not. And it just always ended so bad for me. But because I drank to have fun, I didn't drink because I was sad. I did it to party. I did it because I thought it was something it wasn't. And, when you turn the lights on in your life again, you see it for what it really was. But at the time, and over time it stopped being fun. People didn't want to celebrate with me anymore. People knew what it was I was trying to do. I was just trying to get messed up. So the parties started turning into a party of one. And I would just go off on a bender and it was catastrophic. But yeah, I could relate to that. Things are going great. Let's go party. Yeah, never end.
How many of us can relate to this? Like, you get sober for a little while. He said I was feeling great. Things were going well. There wasn't a cloud on the horizon. And bang, out of nowhere, just want to get high, Who can relate to this? But this is real. I can identify with this.
Yeah, absolutely. The number of times that I have either celebrated hitting my 30 days by going out and getting drunk. So I've got a couple of 1 month trips, but no 2 month. Well, I've got a couple of 2 month trips, but and then the number of jobs. It was like, okay, I got a job this last bender a couple weeks ago. Got an awesome job, and I've had many awesome jobs, and I cannot last more than a couple of weeks. But there's been some that I actually that night went out and got drunk. I didn't even make it to the first day. Because I wanted to celebrate the new job. I was going to have income now. So let's go get just a little drink. And there's a 2-week bender on you. So no, can definitely relate, associating it with celebrating.
Okay, Audra, I think Audra will be our last share for today because we're getting a little tight on time here, wrapping up on our study. So come on in and share with us, Audra.
Hey family, Audra, group recovering alcoholic addicts. This totally resonated with me. I grew up in a family of functioning alcoholics and learned early on that as long as everything looks good from the outside, you know, you have a good education, you have a good job, you have a roof over your head, as long as you don't, you know, look like the stereotypical, you know, alcoholic under the bridge with the paper bags, you're not an alcoholic. And all that did was allow me to continue relapsing off and on and continue my drinking and drugging career for 35 years. I mean, it's truly only by the grace of God that I'm here, because even after rock bottom, homelessness, jail, divorce, I mean, I kept looking for a basement, you know, and then would go on heart attacks, seizures, psychosis. I mean, it's insane. The insanity of it is mind boggling. But, you know, it was the same thing. I thought that it was a willpower. It was a matter of, you know, willpower and moral strength. And it's not. I mean, I was in the medical field and I literally conveniently overlooked the fact that it is a brain disease. You know, like I literally gave up my medical license voluntarily because they told me I had to stop drugs. I said, okay, fine. They said, you need to stop alcohol. I said, no, take your license. I'll just go back to college and get another job. So I literally, this resonated with this story so much. It's so grateful to not be there today and to fully surrender, you know, and admit that I am an alcoholic, period. I mean, and I'm a sober alcoholic today, and I'm always going to be for the rest of my life. You know, the treatment is the program. The treatment is the solution. So, you know, I'm committed to that for the rest of my life. If I want to stay alive, this is how you do it. So thanks all. That's all I have.
All right, cool. And I just, you know what this brought to me, this is very real to me, because if this goes on with you, you need to let somebody know. This is the kind of stuff that I had to let my sponsor know, that it's when things are going really good that you need to watch me. It's not when my ass is on fire. You know, that's when I usually run in to safety. But when I'm out there too long, you know, having a good time and things seem to be going really good, that's when I need to be watched. That's when I need to be talked to. That's when I need to be, you know, really, I just need to be watched. There's no other way to put it. But my sponsor knows this. He knows this. He knows this about me. So if you got something like this going on, you need to let people know. Does that make sense? Let people know, hey, when I'm doing really good, that's when I really need more help. It's not when, you know, people are dying and stuff like that, because it seems like I make it through that stuff. I haven't went out and drank because somebody died in my career, but I went out and drank because somebody lived, you know, or everything's really going good. That's been a ongoing thing for me, in other words, for real. So if that's been going on with you, please let your sponsor know, let your network know. I hope that makes sense, you know?
Okay. Yeah, cousin. So we're pretty much out of time. We're going to wrap things up, and then it looks like our friend Charlene has a question she wants to ask the group after the meeting, and we'll have to stick around for a little bit after fellowship. She wants to ask our group a question. So, cousin, you want to go ahead and wrap things up for us now before I hit stop the recording?
Yeah, sure. Before you stop the recording, let's go over some of the stuff that we looked at and learned today. Number one, I agree that the reason that I relapsed is because I wanted to get high. You need to learn how to say that now, you know, and stop BSing, right? And then what Jim's story showed me is that no matter how bad the necessity that I need to stay sober, that if I don't accept the program, I'm probably going to drink again. And then thirdly, what I just talked about, if it's the good times that seem to drive you to drink, let somebody know so that people could watch you a little more carefully as you're enjoying yourself. And if they see something going sideways, they could tap you on the shoulder and say, hey, you know, maybe you need to watch it and stuff like that. So just wanted to go over those three things. And let me get the script up now. We do have a script that we use to close with, and it's page 164. Let me get to that. pages are just moving so slow. Okay. Sorry about that with my frozen device, but thank everyone for coming out and enjoying and participating in this podcast today, right? We meet here every Sunday at 2 p.m. until 3:30 Eastern Time. Podcast will be available by Thursday or Friday of each week. So the Big Book, page 164. Our book is meant to be suggestive only. We realize that we only know a little. God will constantly disclose more to you and to us. Ask him in your morning meditation what you can do each day for the man who still is sick. The answers will come if your own house is in order. But obviously, you cannot transmit something that you haven't got. See to it that your relationship with him is right, and great events will come to pass for you and countless others. This is a great fact for us. So, abandon yourself to God as you understand it. Admit your faults to him and to your fellows. Clear away the wreckage of your past. Give freely what you find here and join us, and we shall be with you in fellowship of spirit. You will surely some of us as you the road to happy destiny. May God bless you and keep you until then. So let's just be with the Lord's Prayer.
Yeah.
Who woke up this morning?
Our
Father,
who art in heaven,
which art in heaven,
hallowed be
Hallowed
thy
be thy
name.
holy
name.
be thy name,
Thy kingdom
thy
come,
kingdom come,
thy will be
Thy will
done
be
thy
done
will be
on earth
done
as it
on
is in
earth
on
heaven.
earth as it is in heaven.
Give us this
Give us
day
this
our
day our
daily
daily
bread.
our
bread.
daily bread.
Forgive us our
Forgive us our
trespasses,
trespasses
so we
as
can
we
As we
forgive
forgive
those who
those who
trespass
trespass
against
not
us.
take
Lead us
And lead
not
us
lead us
not into
not into
temptation,
temptation,
but
but
deliver
deliver
us
us
from
deliver us
evil.
from evil.
thine is
For
the
thine
kingdom,
is the
Thine is the
kingdom,
kingdom,
and the glory
the
power,
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 and the
glory
glory
Amen.
forever and ever.
forever.
never.
Amen.
Amen.
Okay.
So we're gonna stop the
You
recording.
guys have a beautiful day. Thank you very much. Catch you later.